listen, you never know what to expect when you have the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year on the court at the same time. You never know.
Hey.
Come on, Shade. Come on, Shade.
Oh,
Bring
Lord.
out the sunglasses.
I don't think a lot of people expected, or maybe some people did, the fact that the Pacers came back from being down 2-0. They took care of business at home. And I know OG Anunoby being out helps for them. But just playing at home, the role players step up in different ways. It was really a team effort. Tyrese Halliburton, of course, doing his thing much more aggressive. And the funny thing for me is Tibbs going to see his team crumble because of the amount of minutes that he plays his guys unnecessarily? Again, because they got game 5, right, coming up. But I feel like their legs are just going to give out underneath them because of the wear and tear that Tom Thibodeau has put on them. And this is something that we've seen before, right, in Chicago. And other people are like, oh, well, OG's been out half a year. Mitchell Robinson only played 31 games, whatever. But there's something to be said about playing Josh Hart all these minutes during the regular season when you didn't need to. But I'm happy that the Pacers tied it up at 2 because I didn't want this to be, a sweep or a gentleman's sweep. And now we have a series. And Sharí, I don't know if what's happened has changed your perspective, but do you feel like the Pacers have the momentum here?
I think they do. I would like to strongly suggest that the Knicks organization make sure they have an abundance of crutches, ace bandages, slings, or whatever else you would need for somebody that's going to hurt themselves. I am actually disgusted at the level of injuries and the amount of injuries that we are seeing on the New York Knicks. Like, it is unsettling to me. And it really speaks to your point. I love Tibbs. I love him. But to your point about Chicago, it did happen. And so this is now something that we can say this is a pattern. This isn't just players haphazardly getting injuries throughout the year. There's something to his coaching style that I believe is contributing to this. And with that said, New York is a tough place to play. Nobody wants to go to the Garden. The fans there are lit. They're ready for the next iteration of greatness from the Knicks. So I think Indiana's going to have a tough time there. But I do think the momentum has shifted. And I do think Jalen Brunson, he wills himself in games to make the big shots, to come up big in the big moments, but he's hurt.
Yeah.
And at some point, we're going to see the repercussions of that. I was watching Get Up Mornings, and Wendy talked about the Knicks really having to take advantage of what's going to happen over the next 2 games. They got to get it done now because they got a couple days in between what they have off. And if they don't take advantage of that and have to go back into a 36-hour turn and burn, it might not work out so well for them. So I am pulling for them just because I really just love the energy that the Knicks fans are bringing. I love a good storyline. I love watching Jalen Brunson in particular just become to me, if he keeps this pace, we're talking about him being one of the greats. Like, he's going to be a name that we'll bring up well beyond now. So I'm excited about what he's doing with that team, but I'm also very concerned because even beyond this series, say they do win, what happens next? Are we going to be able to see a competitive Knicks team in the Eastern Conference Finals? Based on what I'm seeing, no. So I am pulling for New York despite the momentum shift. But if Indiana comes in and gets this next game, I'm going to shift my viewpoint.
I said this off camera, but literally, I think the theme of today's show is going to be pressure, because that is what almost every single situation of every topic we plan to discuss centers around: pressure. There's pressure on New York to capitalize and finally get over the hump that no one seems to think that they're able to get over. But the pressure that Indiana put on them, specifically in their full court defense, is the reason why they got their ass whooped. And part of the reason. I mean, they literally kept them to 14 points in the first quarter. Like, they brought the pressure. And I also love the way Tyrese Halliburton in this series has started to force Jalen Brunson even more to step up to the plate and show his resiliency and his poise. Yeah. He willed himself back for sure, to your point, Sharí, because he had a foot injury.
Yeah.
And I think everybody and every team I think every team at this point in the season has to deal with being hurt, dealing with injuries. I mean, literally, you don't play from October to May and possibly into June and you just go through unscathed. No,
Yeah.
like you definitely got some battle wounds that you have to deal with. But the way that this Knicks team has had to rely solely on their starters for 40 minutes, it's really been difficult to watch in that
Yeah.
regard. And it
Yeah.
worked in game 1 and 2, but not so much now. And I think another thing that I find to be truly interesting in this matchup more than anything is players who you don't expect to show up showing up.
Yeah.
And we say that a lot in a lot of different series. How's your bench going to react? But in this series, more than any other, I think in this postseason, bench players are going to be the difference between a win and a loss. You know, I ain't expect Josh Hart to show up the way he show up. I expect DiVincenzo to hit some shots every once in a while. But I mean, it is difficult to have to say to an injured Jalen Brunson, we got to put this team totally on your back. Mm-hmm. So New York is going to have somebody else show up tonight consistently to get them this game 5 win, because we know the stats. We know the stats. When you have to play a game 5 and the series is tied 2-2, typically the winner of game 5 goes on to win the series.
Yeah.
So game 5 is going to be incredibly important for New York if they want to have a shot of making it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
They need to get it done in 6, right? If this series goes 7,
yep,
it's a wrap.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
They don't, and even though it's going to be in the Garden, yeah, those legs, like Dante was shooting out of his freaking mind, you know, the last few games, and then in game 4, you can see his leg, all the legs look so heavy, where his shots were way off, right? No rhythm whatsoever. Josh Hart is gassed. The good thing though is Hart was able to rest 24 minutes, which is more than he's ever rested in this postseason. But again, going back to Tibbs and his philosophy, like he was playing Jalen Brunson and Dante DiVincenzo with like 2 minutes to go in the third quarter when it was a 30-point game, a 30-plus point game. What is the reason there? You know, it baffles me, because we can talk about, oh, this is a fluke injury here, a fluke injury there, but when you know the game's out of hand and you're already thin as hell when it comes to your roster, you got to swallow that pride. And he's a great coach, but he has some flaws, right? And speaking about flaws, the Denver Nuggets showed a whole lot of flaws in games 1 and 2 in their home building, and people were writing them off saying, oh, yeah, it's over. Like, it's really hard to repeat. Like, the Warriors made it look easy. You know, Bulls made it look easy. No. Denver said, we got another thing coming. Because Mike Malone said, here's what everybody's saying about y'all. They don't believe in you. You're dead in the water. And then they came out games 3 and 4, locked in Jamal Murray. Oh, my gosh.
Biggest difference.
That layoff.
Biggest difference in these games.
That layoff, Sharí, those 3 days that he got, it was a complete 180. Because you could just see how he was much more bouncy in his step and the explosiveness. And I know it helped that Aaron Gordon took the ball up, so it relieves him some pressure. But the Nuggets have tied the series, and I am extremely entertained for what we've seen, especially from Nikola Jokic. Some of the passes he made down the stretch were just absurd. And Terrika, I don't know if you have this thought, but I think the Nuggets are winning the series now. As great as Anthony Edwards has been, I think this was their chance. And the fact that they blew 2 games at home, it might be it for them.
I'm not writing them off at all, because it's not like Denver won both their games at home. I mean, the series is a 2-2 game, and that's because both teams lost on the road. I think the game 5 home showing for Denver is what's going to really let me know whether or not this Denver team is serious about moving on. And if they've recognized who they are to be able to play to the level of who they are. Because as of now, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced on either team. Both of y'all ain't take care of business. You both lost at home. You didn't take care of your own spot. And therefore, you needed to go on the road and show and play above and beyond in order to maintain staying into this matchup. Denver was a 33-8 team at home. There was no reason they should have lost those two opening matchups at the crib, but they did. So I think game 5 is going to show us something. After game 5, I'll feel more comfortable saying whether or not I think Minnesota can pull it off, or whether or not Denver truly are going to let it be done in game 6. We will see. But this series, I absolutely believe, is going 7. And I didn't at first. But I do remember both Sharí and I said on this call that game 3 was going to be a must win for Denver. And it was. And that completely changed. Even before seeing game 4, game 3 completely changed the narrative of this series for me. Denver had to wake up, and they did. So right now it's still 0-0. The way I see it, it's still 0-0. But what I do find this little tad bit interesting. Yesterday, I believe it was, or Sunday night, I think it was, the referees, Rudy Gobert didn't like a call. He did this to the referees, and he was fined $75,000, right? And it reminded me of a WNBA player, Tiffany Hayes, who did this in the playoffs against the Liberty, and she was given a technical foul, I believe, or something like that, and whatever. And as much as we have, or maybe not we, but most definitely me, as much as I have talked about how horrible the officiating has been in the NBA, Sunday was actually one of the games, game 4, where the officiating was pretty damn fair.
T-Wolves going to say that. T-Wolves fans, they were like, no, we were getting hacked left and right. Now we're not able to play any defense, blah, blah, blah. Hey.
That Sunday was game 4 was one of the few games this year where I felt the officials actually, they're always horrible, but they were like equally like sustainable horrible. Like I can deal with it horrible. So the irony to me of the one game that you want to say the refs is cheating was probably the one game that they did their damn job. You just didn't play.
Yeah, they didn't show up. And
you just didn't show up.
It's crazy because what I'm really impressed with is the fact that AE keeps showing up, despite what we've seen over the last couple games in particular. And I've just become more and more impressed with him. But that supporting cast, Chris, you mentioned X factors with the Indiana series and New York series. The same applies here. We look at how Gordon has stepped up. When when he is shooting practically perfect from the field, good luck everybody, because now you got Murray in his bag. He went from throwing towels and heating pads to shooting it from half court, beating the buzzer at halftime. So I just think that, the Timberwolves are going to have to find a way to have a situation where more people are contributing consistently. Karl Anthony Towns, you can't go from being like super, super impactful to, okay, where did he go? And your shots have to fall. Like I just feel like for Denver, their supporting cast, the wheels are turning a bit more. And I think that's why we're seeing them now turn a corner, in addition to Murray just saying, okay, I'm sick of it. Nikola Jokic is going to be Nikola Jokic. He's going to do what he does, and everybody knows that. But now we're talking about the other, branches to both trees on these teams. I think that's going to make the biggest difference. But I have to agree with Terrika here. I'm not, interestingly enough, I did count Denver out. I just thought that the Timberwolves looked so good. I just wasn't sure how Denver was going to recover. But I can't count the Timberwolves out because Anthony Edwards is just, he will not be denied.
He's
and
relentless.
I think relentless. If anybody else catches wind again, we could see what we saw in the first 2 games. I think the Timberwolves are just that good. But say they do win and we take them beyond this point, it's very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde in this series, which to me makes no sense, even from Denver. I mean, you're the defending champs, and I really don't know who you're going to be from game to game, which is a bit strange. We're also seeing that with the Celtics, which I'm sure we'll get to. But this has been a very fascinating series to me. But it also speaks to the future of the Timberwolves. Say this doesn't happen for them this year. my goodness, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for the next several years, especially under Anthony Edwards' leadership. So we'll see. And I was wrong. Yes, I was wrong. I said it was going to be a sweep. Now it looked like I know absolutely nothing about the game of basketball. Everybody, yes, once again, I was incorrect.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Yeah, you can't be perfect. We strive for it, but it's not realistic.
It's all good. Listen, you never know what to expect when you have the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year on the court at the same time. Never know.
Hey, come on, Shade. Come on, Shade.
Hey, oh,
Bring
Lord.
out the sunglasses.
Hey, well, listen.
Whenever you get to doing your side neck, Terrika, we already know what's going on with you. And you almost got whiplash that time. I know what you're doing. You start looking away to the side, turning your neck. It is Shade. And guess what? Cha-ching, I concur. Toast to you. I am in alignment. Sustained.
So
what's the meme with my man?
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.